Okay, my fabulous friends, what a difference a day makes. I've got the details on that big round structure that was claimed to be a tree. I say it is not. I say it is an artery from a gigantic creature. And anytime you have an artery which has primarily red blood, you will have vein blood in that area as well. And I believe this is the black of the vein blood, and all of these little layers of tissue are from the side of the heart that pumps the vein blood. Now let's look at this a little closer. We're going to be going back and taking a look at, see, here's the black part, here's where the red part is over here. You see how this is real reddish? You see the red here? That's the red blood side. And that's why it's this color, yellow, red, that type of thing. And then you get into the black blood over here. Now, these layers of tissue, I believe these are layers of tissue. Now, we're going to come in and look at this a lot closer. And then I got reports, so like I say, I got my spies everywhere in the world now. And when I post something, boom, right away I get a whole bunch of people saying, you got to see this, or I know about this, or whatever. But one of them was about somebody that works as a cardiac specialist, and said, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And she read off a whole batch of little things, and I went and looked them up, and yes, I agree with what she's saying, and I agree with that it is a heart. So let's dig in deep and see if we can come up with some details to solve some of these anomalies. All right, so when you understand biology and understand anatomy, the heart has red blood, which is very, very fertile. You see all this green stuff growing over here. And then you have the black blood, which is not fertile. It doesn't make things grow green. You see all the green growing here, going here? Now, this is pumping blood. If it is what I say it is, and I believe it is, and other people have confirmed they agree, the people that are experts, and it pumps blood. Blood is a fluid. The fluid actually turns into rivers. These things are gigantic. Look at the size of that. So now you have your red blood area here, which is all your green looking stuff growing, and you have your black blood area over here, which doesn't have much fertility to it. And this actually right here could be a valve that's just plugged off, because the black just seals right off. You know, and it looks like it's almost capped off there. But anyway, that's the two, I claim, of the chemistry of the heart, the red blood versus the black blood. Now, so what would you have near your hearts? Well, near a heart you have lungs. And I think that's exactly what we got here. These are lungs. Now, let's look. Don't forget. Here's the heart up here, and right down here, I say we're right into the lungs. We're right. You see all this pinky looking stuff? Now, you see all this? I believe these are like the alveoli. Now, the other thing you see is these little tiny lines here. And they're running all over the place. But you see how these bumps here, I believe these are all alveoli, and you see how they're growing nice and green down in here? There's not a lot of nice red blood down in here. And I'm pretty sure these are the lungs. So you got your heart, you got your lungs. And there's the cleave right down the center. And they branch off this way, they branch off this way, they come down, they go over, they go over. And all this, I believe, is the alveoli of the lungs. Now, remember I talked about these little tiny lines here? I'm almost certain what these are is the lymph ducts. All right, they're not big enough to be regular like arteries and veins and so forth, but they pick up the lymph. And I suppose that could be looked into. what exactly is in.
There you go.
All right, here's the thing to remember. If this was a heart, which it was, this vibrant green is growing because of blood. Blood makes things grow very, very green. Now, the other thing to remember is all the plumbing that was part of the heart is still here. And water flows through it now, primarily, where the artery was. The arteries flush right out, and they open right up, and they just turn into rivers and underwater caves and water systems and so forth. They just evacuate. They're very fluidy. And that's what we have here is an arterial attachment, basically. This is what I want you to look at. This is what I found was just incredibly unbelievable that I have one of these right here. Excuse me. Really, this is just incredibly unbelievable. That right there is the aorta, I believe. This right here. You see this strap coming right down here in these bumps? Bump, 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 bump. That's this. Bump, 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 bump. You see it? It's the same thing. Here is here. And these are the bumps. Bump, 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 right down the line. Isn't that incredible? And I believe this one here is this one. Because there was blood coming out of here too. This is a crystal heart. Now, I want to show you something else about how a crystal forms. There's a lot of other structures inside of a heart, and every membrane and every nerve fiber and every little fiber has a coating. Now, I have another heart here. This one is cut in half, but inside of it, they're just loaded with all kinds of heartstrings and all kinds of things inside. Now this one's not cut, but that's the seam that runs down to divide the two lobes of the heart here, to separate them, and that's this right here, and these are those bumps right there. Bump, 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 right down the line. Isn't that something? And I believe this is that. Here, there's a little spot I found that looks, I think it's right over in here, but it just lines up, everything lines up. And then all the blood ran out of here. And one side, of course, was the red, and there's all this green stuff growing, and the other side was the black, didn't have much growing at all, the black stuff. All right, so don't forget, this is DAMT, Kenya, and this is where that heart is, right there. All right, and here's the other part of the heart right here, and all this green is from blood. This scruffy looking stuff here, that is literally glue that glues the tube into the valve. And, you know, I'm sure they have some kind of biological name for it. And as a matter of fact, somebody left me the name, I believe. And these are the spots that are on my heart, right here. Same spots. See it? Boom, 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 right down the line. Same thing. And I believe that one is this one here. All right, this is where that artery is. This, I believe, are lungs, as I showed before. And this, I don't know what that is, but it's some kind of an organ. Whoops. Where'd it go? Come on back. Here it is right here. And don't forget, here's where the tube is. All right, that's where the artery is. All right, now if we come over here, don't forget these are all, I think these are all alveoli. And then we come over here to this thing here, which appears to be some kind of an organ. You see this? All this coming up on the sides here? It's bolstered up there. There's something that was sitting up there like an organ of some sort. At first I thought, wow, that could be a brain. I could see these two things in the front here. They look like eyeballs. And split right down the middle like a brain, but I don't think that's what it is. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but as far as I'm concerned, it's some kind of an organ. And there are people living up here because it's probably quite fertile. It's some kind of different, you know, and it's like this reddish color, which is really heavy into blood, transition metals. And they're living up here because it's, you know, it's fertile. I would assume that that's why they're up there. Anyway, it'd be really interesting to get some nice drone pictures up and around here. There's things I'd like to see, and I believe there's these little stripy looking structures in here that give it some integrity, you know. Okay, they found this, which I believe is another one of these implants of these arterial networks. And this is inside of a coal seam. Well, what is coal? What's coal made out of? It's hydrocarbons. What's hydrocarbons made out of? It's made out of blood. So they found it inside of a bunch of blood, basically. All right, so that's what it is. As far as I'm concerned, that was a right up here, and this is the wall of the heart, and the blood would have gone up, and this was just nothing more than blood in there. It turns into coal. All right, I'm going to finish it up with this. As I showed you, as far as I'm concerned, was an aorta, more than likely. And it's this mitral valve, I believe they call it. And so is this, found in a coal seam. And that's, of course, a heart, which has just been from a person's body. This is a heart that's been sliced, was a living heart, been sliced in half, and you can see how much intricacy is in there. And that is just exactly like this. This is a heart as well. This was a heart. And I sliced it right in half, and all of that stuff is the same stuff that's in there. That's why you see all these fibers. Now, I'm going to show you the Mitchell-Hedges skull, and you don't see all those fibers. Well, you see some, but not many. And the only reason you see them is because they're insulation from nerves. Now, this is also a heart. I showed this, I know I showed you before, and these are those little bumps that run down from the valve, somewhere around down here. And but I showed it in the one that's in Yemen, and this is that seam right there is basically like this seam, but on the outside. This, of course, is turned into glass, basically. Now, the same thing happened to the Mitchell-Hedges skull. And let me show you what did happen, and I can pretty much prove that that is not somebody's carving. Now, I say, as far as I'm concerned, I can prove it. Now, the first thing when I looked at this, I saw the teeth, and I said, there's no way that somebody carved this. Those are absolutely flawless, perfect. And they're totally glass now. This is just like, all right, crazy. Well, I never let myself get so far away from something that I can't rethink it. And I did. And I looked, and I saw the lip all pushed back and the nose all pushed back. And I'm wondering, who would carve that? And then all of this stuff deep inside the glass. How did that get in there? And does it have any meaning? So I decided, well, I'll do a little investigation about the anatomy of the nervous system inside the brain. And are these nerves? Maybe they are, maybe they're not, I don't know. But this intrigued me because I could see As far as I'm concerned, it was twisted on its face like this. And the lip was pushed back, and it was like in the mud. And as all of this stuff continuously invaded, it replaced, due to nucleophilic invasion, it replaced what was here with silicates. And this is what we have now, is SiO2 primarily, quartz crystal. All right, so let's make some comparisons here. This is something inside all of this glass. Now this was found, I think, close to 100 years ago. Guess what is all this stuff is here? It's nerves. You see that bundle coming up like this and swishing around like that? You see it coming up in here and swishing around like that? You see it? Nobody carved that on the outside. That's inside of this quartz. Now what about this? What's going on here? Well, we got one of those here. But this one's way over this way, and this one's way in the back. Why would that be? Well, the guy was laying down on his face, and this drifted downwards, separated from the skull. This one's pretty close to the skull line. That one just, specific gravity, just laid it down. So that's exactly what you would expect, as that would drift forward a little bit. Now look at all these fibers here. What's this? Look at that. That's separate from this. You see that black line in between? You see that black line in between? You see how perfectly swayed this is? And how perfectly swayed that is? And then this right here, all coming down. It's got a bunch of other stuff going on up here, but this is very convincing to me. Nobody carved that, and nobody could possibly have even known that this existed, first of all, at that particular time. Secondly, there's no way they could put it inside of this. It just can't happen. Now, I've showed this to people, and I've tried to explain to them, and they listened, but so, no, they can do that with heat stress. I said, well, who would do that, first of all? How would he even know it was there? And why would they do this with the lip and the nose? And why would the brain drift forward like this? Like I say, being on its face, yes. Now, they said, well, it's impossible because of the teeth. I said, I can't really disagree with that. These teeth or something. But there was a time, this is all pre-flood stuff. There was a time we weren't supposed to eat meat. Maybe these are designed just to eat vegetables. I don't know. But they had engineering here. There's no question whatsoever. We have the no-toes, the engineered feet. They have springs in them and all kinds of different things. They don't exist now. Now we have tendons and we have bones and we have all kinds of different things like that. Back then, I think they had all that stuff, but in certain places they used springs instead of tendons. Tendons, give it that oomph, oomph, oomph. Well, spring does the same thing. Okay, my friends, there's really nothing here silly whatsoever that I'm talking about. I'm showing cardiac muscle here. All right, that's what the cardiac muscle looks like. That's Ayers rock, which just happens to be a gigantic heart. And this is what cardiac muscle looks like. Remember this? Here it is right here. And all the reddish stuff erodes away, and you end up with the fiber in all those little fabric-y looking things, like here. All right, that's heart muscle. All right, this is a heart, sliced down, and I showed you mine, wherever they are around here. It's basically the same thing inside, but this one here is turned to basically 100% SiO2, except for all of these fibers. The fibers are a little different, and that's why you see in the Mitchell hedges everything else turned except the fibers. The fibers have an insulation. Insulation is a membrane. When you have a membrane, the membranes don't change the way the fleshy stuff does, the really gooey fleshy stuff. Membranes are, there's a phospholipid membrane around virtually everything in your body, and those don't change the way everything else changes. That's why you see this inside. I think I've shown that pretty well. And pretty much shown everything here. Now, these are the colors on the heart, and this is what's from nucleophilic substitution and invasion after it was dead. And there was all kinds of transition metals, so they could find favorable stabilizing partners in the transition metals, which are these. That's why they have all those colors. There was enough time for them to soak in there and latch on to the ones with the charges that complemented what they had for a charge. So if they had a -2, that had a +2, well, and then it turns purple. That's the type of thing that you're looking at when you look at all these, because each one of these tissues is a separate type of tissue, and it has a separate type of requirement, which means it wants a different type of transition metal. And this is the bottom of the heart. It was laying this way. That's the transition metals are a little heavier than the rest. The plasma drifted to the top, and the metals drifted to the bottom. I understand this stuff pretty seriously now. And again, we have the notos. You see that? We have these notos, and I have all kinds of different ones. And Tish Egerton found some that have springs in them, and she sent them to me. I have them here, and this is just like our foot, and that bone in the back right here is the heel, and this strap is the strap that would run up to the bone that runs here, which is the tibia. You see it right there? It would be right here. Now that strap snapped right about here, and that made a wrinkle zone right around here, a wrinkle zone, and it shows here. I'll show you in a second. But we have all scads of these things. Seriously, a lot of them. Now here's that wrinkle zone. Here it is right here. You see this? That's the heel, and that's the little like heel pad that goes under, so that when you step, you got a heel. You can slam down on that heel. Now, that was that strap that ran all the way up to where a bone would have sat right in that cradle. And your foot could rock around and your bone would be there, and this would be tight. This right here is that wrinkle zone. See? It's supposed to be flat like this, but it's all wrinkly here. Can you see that all right? You see the difference? You see it flat there, and then all wrinkly up above, all fluffy looking? And that's because it got cut. And then these are the springs. Instead of bones, tendons, these have springs. And that spring loads up, and this little piece pulls away. And you see that little latch right there, and this little latch right here? This twists like that, and this pulls down and pulls this one in. So you got one, and then two. Click, click, and it would drop right back where it's supposed to be all by itself. That's why you got this void here. And that's why you got these little wires and little latches. I mean, it's not a bad design. It really isn't. But it's strange. But it's quite obvious that's the heel. And these are the notos. We got them, and I've got a complete leg of one here. She sent me the stuff she had. And so we have a whole different set of equipment back then. That's all I can tell you.